Okay, welcome everyone to another Empires and Puzzles Books video. My name is Jeff, JekylandHyde in-game, Empires and Puzzles Books online, and kind of everywhere else. And today we are talking with Bung from the White Lotus, and he's tuning in from New Jersey, the greater Philadelphia area of New Jersey. Hopefully you weren't impacted too bad with the flooding and everything coming in from Ida.
No, I got lucky. I was in the Poconos. It missed us.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
And your property was okay when you got home?
Yeah, everything was good. We got lucky. I know some people didn't.
Excellent. Now, I want to start off this interview being very candid with everybody. I usually try to have polite and friendly conversations, be educational about the game, learn new insights, but this might be my first truly adversarial interview. No, I'm not going to attack Bung and tear him apart, but we are opponents in war today. So he is truly the enemy. This is the first time this has happened since I've been doing these interviews. So I'm speaking with the enemy here. So first real interview question, Bung. Who's going to win this war?
White Lotus, without a doubt. Pretty sure we won last time, no matter how well you did. One person doesn't make the war. You know that.
I did have 6 one-shots against you last time, but we'll see how it goes. We've had some roster changes, so we'll see what we can do against you guys. And this is a different war type. Last time, I believe it was undead, and today is arrows.
I think last time was
Equalizer.
Equalizer.
Yeah, it was Equalizer. I just knew it was different. So yeah, it was Equalizer last time. So we'll see how you guys do with all of our arrows being thrown at you. Yeah. So I'll also be candid up front. Bung and I have some history. We actually used to be in an alliance together more than a year ago. Myself and a few people left, and then shortly after that, it kind of imploded, I guess, a little bit, and people left. But a bulk, almost half of that alliance is now made up in White Lotus.
Correct.
So I'm seeing a lot of familiar names on the other side of the battlefield today.
We're very fortunate. We have a really good leader in Quillix. He's exactly the kind of person you want running your alliance. Patient, smart, always available to talk, although he lives in Australia, so you know his time is a lot different than my time. And then a lot of the other people who came over are just fantastic people. They're very patient. And I heard in one of your previous interviews they have rules. One rule we have is we don't apologize for how things go. We all know each other. If a hit doesn't go particularly well, it has to be tile related. The players at this level don't make mistakes on purpose. Everyone tries hard, and so we don't apologize. There's just no need for it.
Agreed with that. I don't know any player that's not had a bad war, and everyone you said at this level has had excellent wars. You know, we can joke that I had 6 one-shots against you last time, but you could have 6 today, and you know.
Oh, I will.
Oh, did we get the point spread? How much you guys going to win by?
I think it's going to be close.
All right, we'll talk offline about the wager.
All right, you got it. Yeah, we make bets. We make bets within our own alliance. Who's going to do better? And the loser has to change their name to whatever the winner wants it to be for a solid week.
Nice.
And I remember Jen doing that to me, and I was referred to as something I don't know if I can say on here, but I had to change my name for a week, and it was really embarrassing. And but it's the kind of camaraderie that you form with these individuals that you meet through these alliances.
Sure, it's part of the joy of the alliance. If you can't harass your teammates, who can you harass? So before we get too far, and I always want to get this up front and always forget. So where does Bung come from? Where's your player name?
It's a good question. Years ago, before I had kids, when I had time to be a true gamer, I signed up for World of Warcraft thinking it was some sort of joke. And I was a big Beavis and Butthead fan at the time. So I figured, you know what, I'll make my name Bungholio because I'm going to play World of Warcraft for approximately 5 minutes and delete it. And 10 years later, you know, after playing it 10 hours a day, I had a baby. My wife had a baby, more accurately. And then I never played again. That was it. So the name comes from that. It's sort of just making fun of what I thought of online games or games like the one we play. And then in this alliance and in this game over the years, I got really tired of the TP for my bunghole jokes. So I just shortened it to Bung, hoping that people don't put the connection together and make that stupid joke again.
Right. Well, now we just put it out to the public so everybody knows. So I apologize in advance for the next round of jokes.
It's
So,
fine.
so it is good that you mentioned that you have kids. Just so we're clear, you're not sitting in your own bedroom right now. That
No,
is,
this is my son's bedroom. COVID, as this pandemic's made things very odd for me, including putting in my computer in my son's room, and you know,
he's got to do his online education at home when you're remote, right?
yeah, pretty much. And it was a rough year, but this game has been one of the best distractions I could have asked for. And I spend time every day with my best friend Waggy, chatting about this game and discussing different angles and trying to figure things out and discussing our award teams, which change on a weekly basis.
Yep. I'm with you. I definitely think that Empires and Puzzles has been a great crutch to get through the pandemic, especially when you're locked up for long stretches at home. So let's jump in now. The way this interview was set up today, there wasn't most of the previous interviews. I had a specific target for speaking to that person in a specific angle. I'm going to say Bung is more of a generalist and has all kinds of great ideas about the game. So we threw out a couple different talking points. So we're just going to take a walk through those and see where we get. If we have time at the end, we're going to pull apart his war teams and see what he's going to be attacking with me later today. Right. So let's, these are all talking points that you had thrown out. So hopefully none of these are surprise. But the first one that you had mentioned was the importance of the relative value of heroes based on a player's roster. Right. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Sometimes I throw myself out there on chat just to ask for any players that have any questions about the game. And some people take it seriously and some don't. But I often find that general lists of rankings of heroes, of who's better in these different situations. In my mind, it's all very relative based on what heroes you already have, what emblems you have available to put on those heroes, and what ascension items you have to ascend them. So relatively speaking, and I'll use the season 1 heroes as an example, a lot of players who spend money on the game will bench the season 1 heroes because there are direct upgrades within the game that exist. But for other people, for other players, I'll use Thorn as an example. If you don't have a lot of 5-star blue heroes and you don't have a lot of paladins and you have the emblems available to that player, Thorn is very valuable. But if that player were to look online for advice, they would see Thorn fairly low on the list. And it's that kind of thought process where it's much more about synergy and what heroes you have and who you're going to pair them with than it is the actual hero.
I agree with that. And truth be told, now granted, some of this is with costumes, but I still use season 1 heroes as some of my first choice items. I mean, my main attack teams almost always have costume Elkanin. In fact, I maxed a second of a copy, and I think it's no secret, I'm obviously pay to play in the game and have a healthy roster. So having multiple choices that are out there, I'm still choosing costume Elk. I mean, for his ability to hit 3 equally, hit them hard, self-healing a little bit. I mean, he's just a phenomenal hero. And you mentioned Thorn, who I maxed well after I maxed all these other fancy heroes, and I maxed Thorn because he's awesome in events. His ability to hit 3. I don't have his costume, and I don't really need it. I'd love to have it just for the extra boost to his stats. But heck, the first Ninja Tower, I finished 6th overall, and I used Thorn at 370. He was like one of the main heroes, and that's what convinced me to max him out. So I'm with you. Like you sometimes you got to, when I used to race cars, actually in New Jersey, your home state there, we used to always have a saying that you run what you brung. So if those are the heroes you have, figure out how to make them work. And I'm actually jealous on some level of some of the free to play, cheap to play, because I think that forces them sometimes to learn a hero better. They're not distracted by all this new candy, and they figure out ways to maximize what like I said, run what they brung. They figure out what they have. Right. So
plus
is there any?
They're utilizing a lot more of the 4 stars, which I think is a big advantage because a player that buys the 100 new heroes that have come out in the last year, they're trying to put in all their fancy new toys, but meanwhile, somebody who really knows these heroes and understands the 4 stars can now limit break them, can emblem them. And they're super useful. And if you know how to put them together and what combinations work, you're going to have just as much success as a player who has every new toy.
Yep. And actually, you know what? Mark Bryan's word, Bung, excuse me.
It's okay. Brian's fine.
Well, mark his words on this, because I'm going to tell you something right now. He actually just hinted at a very subtle change in the meta that I think is coming. Not just because of the limit breaks, but because of the type of 4-stars that they're coming out with. I would say for the last year plus, or maybe since forever, on the top level of war, it was not uncommon to see 4-stars, typically healers, just because you get a lot of average healers that could have these secondary effects that were real great. We've seen them emblemed up, but I think we're going to start seeing other 4-stars in war that aren't healers more often. You know, you have the 4-stars that are eating up minions. You have the Slayer heroes that I think Cillian is a mislabeled 5-star. He is just phenomenal. And you know, we've already seen it in rush tournaments, people bringing Proteus and heroes like that, Merlin.
Yeah, Gillenbursty I've seen a lot.
Gillenbursty, yeah, sure. So things are changing. So don't rule out those 4-stars. Is there anyone else from season 1 that you'd like to highlight or indicate
I think
relevant?
Liana's a good example. Liana gets outclassed by other snipers in the game, such as Kingston or Fluffy, for straight damage and survivability and stats and that sort of thing. She's a fantastic sniper. If you don't really have another green sniper, you don't have a lot of rangers. Her value is very high. I know other, like I said, looking at rankings can be kind of confusing. And that's where I think there's more free-to-play players in the game, if I'm correct. You mentioned there's about 2 million active users. I think the majority of them don't spend a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And then they get a Liana somehow, and unfortunately they might be disappointed, where they shouldn't be, because she's a fantastic hero. She hits super hard.
Yep, agreed. And some of it, you know, I would also second on your sentiment about the heroes relative to the value of your roster, but it's also relative to the level of the game that you're at. So yeah, maybe if you're cheap to play or free to play and your roster's heavily season 1 dependent, you might feel a different way about it if you're trying to play in a top 50 alliance as opposed to playing in a top 200 alliance.
Right.
So some of that also depends on which level of competition you're interested in getting into. I would venture a guess that there's probably very few cheap to play and probably almost no free to play in the top 10, 20 alliances, at least the alliances that are consistently there.
Yeah, I think the difference between them, though, has more to do with the troops and the defenses that you're putting out for war versus your offensive capabilities. I think your knowledge of the heroes, you can use lesser heroes on offense if you know how to put them together.
Sure. Agreed. All right. So talking about rosters, I'm going to go ahead and have your roster playing here so everybody can check out who you have. And you definitely have a pretty healthy roster rolling by. But as this is going by, let's talk about, you had indicated you have a very black and white view on putting emblems on heroes. And this is a question that comes up all the time. So share your black and white view on emblems.
It's a big bone of contention. We have some extremely smart players in White Lotus, including Angel. And Angel's brilliant, and we have arguments and discussions. Well, you can call them arguments. I call them discussions. And I think these are some of the more controversial heroes in the game, and this is why. There are heroes in the game that are much more emblem dependent than other heroes. They start off with less base stats. They don't have a lot of survivability. So I think where people get confused, and some really good examples of this are Melosi, Hell, and the elemental heroes, the elemental down heroes. And my philosophy is this: if their job isn't to kill people, you really should go shield path, or at least try and get them to 800 defense and 1500 health. Because to me, a dead hero isn't real effective at dispelling. And so what I've always done, even with the elemental heroes, I think there's a difference if you're shooting for tops on Mythic Titan. If you're going to go that route, you're going to go attack route because you're going to want to increase the tile damage to the maximum. But if you're a player that isn't shooting for that, or you have multiple Evelyns, for example, in my mind, and you really want to go shield path because you can get Evelyn to 800 defense and 1500 health. And then her surviving and setting up your hitters and dispelling and doing all the things that she's meant to do is very different. If they're a Liana and they're a hitter, in my mind, then you're going to go sword path. And there's some mixing and matching depending on where the stats lie. For example, with Cobalt, I think I skipped one sword node just to get his stats up to, I think, 780 defense. Because what I noticed a lot when I used him was he died. And what this really cost me a lot of in the game, besides resources and money, were reset tokens. We were chatting earlier about items in the game. To me, reset tokens are the most valuable item in the game. And I have reset these heroes so many times. I have lost so many wizard emblems trying to figure out why certain heroes worked and didn't work and what have I experimented with. And I benched heroes that I think people have a lot of controversy over, like Hell. Hell, for example, in my mind, she's not a hitter. Her job is to do what Proteus does, which is to slow people down for 4 turns, allow you to shoot tiles. Now, she has the advantage of hitting one person particularly hard, which is great. But in my mind, if you don't get her defensive stats up to a certain point, she's not going to survive long enough for her to do anything. So with her, I went shield path, and I sent you a picture. I showed you that you can get her to 800 and 1500, which is what I shoot for.
All right, so now I got to stop you. That's the third time you mentioned 800 and 1500. Let's talk about those numbers. Where did you come up with those? Why are they so relevant to you?
I just somehow, with all the different experimenting and things that I've tried, I have found that those are numbers where heroes survive a hit. And in a lot of cases, you and I are hitting Barra tanks with Freya and Odin as the flanks. And you want to be able to survive both of them going off. And if you can't survive that, then I don't see where that hero does you a lot of good during war. So those are numbers that I kind of shoot for or get close to.
Okay. Frigga Owen.
Yeah, right.
You said Freya. You got the Barra Freya on your mind.
Oh yeah.
Just so we're clear. So we're seeing a lot of Barra tanks that still have Frigg and Odin, but we might be seeing that meta changing soon too. We'll see. Right. So I would agree with you on the elemental defense down, but I would also point out that for those that are competing in the towers and the challenge events and things like that, attack nodes are still super important. Wherever you're looking for that tile damage plus big hits, I tend to do a lot of attack path. It's funny, when emblems first came out, I was doing exactly what you're talking about. I'm like, you know what? They're 5-star heroes. They're already awesome. I just want to keep them alive. So I was doing a lot of health and shield. And then as I was playing and became competitive in the things outside of war, I was like, man, I'm losing out on big tile damage. So I shifted things around. All of this, for anybody who's listening, I think should be a serious warning about how you're spending your Aethers, those limit breakers. It sounds like Brian might be moving emblems around even faster than I move emblems around, but we can't do that with the Aethers. You got a one-shot deal, at least as of now. So, and this is why I keep cautioning people about spending them too quickly. I've invested some on some of the 3s and 4s, but 5s, I actually don't have the extra Aether yet to actually even choose the limit break of 5, and I'm actually kind of preferring that because I don't want to feel tempted to do it. But let's talk about limit breaking 5s. Where is your brain at? Where do you think you're going to make that investment?
Well, we're on the same page. I haven't invested in any of the 5 stars yet. I really just want to see where it shakes out, and I've invested in a couple 4 stars and a few 3 stars.
Yeah,
that's about it.
The 5s, my knee-jerk reaction, and I haven't changed that much since the limit breakers first came out, is I would like to invest in heroes that increase my in-game economy. So, and the first one, and the ones that are timeless, and the ones that are useful in every single aspect of the game. And the first ones that come to mind for me that are the elemental defense downs. They're important for towers, challenge events, titans, war rating. There isn't really a place. I think the only place that I don't really use elemental defense down heroes is typically not on my defensive teams. But those heroes also generate in-game income for me. That's how I get 4-star mats in the events and emblems in the towers and things like that. So as I was saying, the elemental defense down heroes are just valuable everywhere. I cannot, with all the changes that happen in meta, I mean, the game is based on elements, which are colors, and I just can't imagine elemental defense down will ever not be relevant. Correct. But what scares me is the people who talk about oh my God, Bear is amazing tank. You got to go and limit break Bear right away. It's like
Right.
a year and a half ago, everybody would have been limit breaking Taloria, and I don't know that they would have been enjoying that so much now.
Right. I completely agree with that sentiment. It's the thing with Bera, I always wonder too, is a lot of her value is when she dies. So I don't see where that increase helps her tremendously. And I agree with you, the meta is going to change. And so I'm kind of waiting it out.
Yeah, even friggin' Odin, I'm not sure. Everybody thought Frigg was the schnizzle, and then they came out with Moral. And granted,
Right.
it's a different element, but
Right.
there are people who they're going to be heroes that I think do similar things, but maybe better or more useful. And as you mentioned, depending on who's on your roster and where we're pairing them up. So let's talk about the 3 types of heroes that you think are the most valuable in the game. And we're looking at your current leveling team now, and you're obviously leveling some of these, but taunt heroes, overhealers, and we've been talking a lot about elemental defense down. So why are those 3 the big ones for you?
The taunts and the overheal. I've seen videos of other people using them for war. I guess mostly my main focus in the game, so that people realize it, I'm mostly focused on war and Titans. I don't really do a lot of the events, so I may mention certain ways of handling these heroes more angled towards what I do. But for me, when you're in a war, if you can overheal and get your heroes to such a ridiculous health number, you're going to win. And I like to even mix them as much as I can to have an overheal and a taunt on every war team. So when you see the heroes that I'm sending next, it's a duplicate Black Knight and a duplicate Professor Lindenbrock. And that is just to put them on a team and some other great hero, simply to have, I'm a 3-2 player, to have 2 different colors where one is a taunt and one is an overheal. And to me, I think it's such a tremendous advantage in these wars. There are individual other heroes in the game that fall outside of that I think are also extremely effective in war. But if I had to choose, I go with them. And every war team I work with one exception, I think has an elemental down. And they're the ultimate setup. They're always dispellers, which is huge on any war team, especially when you're facing these taunt heroes. And that's the way I would go. If you had all the money in the world and you could have multiples of any of them, those are the ones. And I missed out on Krampus, and trust me, this Christmas I'll be spending some money.
Yeah. Trying to get yourself a holiday gift.
Absolutely.
All right. So you also mentioned pre-interview about the math behind opening chests.
Right.
And frequency versus probability.
Correct. And this is the discussion I often have on a daily basis. And I know we've chatted about this too. There's a lot of players that are superstitious, and they wake up at certain times of the day to do pulls, and they feel if they get, I know in your videos you joke about Dawa. You see Dawa come and you're like, oh man, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get exactly what I want. But in my mind, it's flipping a quarter. Sure. You flip a quarter, you have a 50% chance of getting heads and tails. The next time you're going to flip a quarter, you still have the same exact 50% chance. And the idea in the game, in my mind, is to just open as many chests as you can per day. Mm-hmm. Look at it like you have a 1% chance with any chest of getting something worthwhile. And there are going to be players that are going to get heads 10 times in a row. Mm-hmm. That happens, and there's players, and you have the opposite. And I've gone through streaks of 3 or 4 months with chests where I haven't gotten anything. And that's all part of the game. But I think it's like gambling. When you go to a casino and you actually win money, that's the worst possible thing that can happen to you. Because then you think you're invincible. You think anytime I show up and I'm going to play blackjack again, I'm going to win $1,000 just like I did. But the chances are you're not. And that's what this game is like. So when you find something in the game, like let's say you fall in love with Mystic Vision, because Mystic Vision gives you a tabard one day and gives you rings the next day, don't count on it. It's not going to happen. You just got heads a couple times in a row. That, sure. In my mind, that's how the game works.
Yep. It's just a happy surprise.
And then there's those theorists that say that there's something written into the code in the game, which disallows you. So you're the kind of person that never gets heroes that you want. Like one of the people you mentioned in your alliance earlier, that is super lucky getting items, has a tremendous stock of items for Ascension, but can't seem to get a hero that he or she wants ever. And to me, that's just, they got heads in one way and they didn't get heads in another way.
Sure. Yeah. The Dawa method and the censure method and stuff. I do mention those, and it's all tongue in cheek when I'm doing my summons. The reality is with the censure method, that has worked 100% of the times that it's worked.
What's the censure method? Explain that one.
The censure method is, and I'm going to get the exact details wrong, but basically you do the daily summons coins, the regular summons, until you get, I don't even remember, I haven't looked at it so long, but I think it's until you get a 2-star troop, and then you do like a regular event summons, and if you get a 3-star, actually after a 2-star troop in the regular summons, if you get a 3-star hero, so you get a 2-star blue troop and then you pull gunner, well, that's the signal to go do a 10 pull in an event, and you're guaranteed to get an event 5-star. And I will be candid, that has actually worked for me like 4 or 5 times. Wow. But the reality is it's not worked for me like 30 sometimes. So it works when it works, and it's confirmation bias.
It's just like the 20 times I went back to the casino after I won and lost every single time.
Right. So the reality is the only way you can actually truly affect the summoning, if you really want the hero you want, the only thing that's guaranteed to work almost every time is to actually dress as closely as you can to the hero you want and videotape that and send that into me. I will put that on YouTube for you. And I will be candid and tell you, if it does not work for you, you didn't dress well enough. So really.
Right. The other method is to have your credit card company shut your credit card off because they're assuming there's no way that somebody spent $2,000 in one day on the game. Yeah. You know, all these Apple iTunes charges, and then they shut your card off. If that happens, you may have gotten the hero you wanted.
Yeah, you might have also got the debt you wanted. So at any rate, to prove the method that I worked, I just want to thank Bung in advance for agreeing to dress up like Toxicondra later and do some summons so we can see him pull Toxicondra.
I'm sure there's some green hairspray somewhere in here.
Excuse me.
Maybe we'll make that bet about the war. You know, whichever one of us one shots the other one, we'll dress up as our favorite character, and we'll do this again one day.
Yeah. I'll my internet might not be working after this, but we'll see. All right, Bunk. So you mentioned that your focus is mostly war and Titan. Before we talk about war, let's go ahead and talk about Titans, because I think you have a method that'll kind of appeal to some of the free-to-play, cheap-to-play players out there. So what is your method for getting significant war hits, Titan hits? And you are fighting 14s every day. So what are you doing with them?
My method is a little different, but I use Wilbur on every Titan. I find that, you know, obviously you're getting the defense down, you're getting the 44%, and then you're getting shared damage. And the shared damage to me is the key. And I understand completely how mono works more effectively in terms of tile damage. But I find that mono also works much better with higher level battle items that are more expensive, such as tornadoes, hurricanes, etc. So if you want to go cheap, my method is use an attack up. If you're lucky enough to have Miki, great. You use Wilbur for your defense down every single time, elemental down, and then your 2 highest attack. Or if you want to use a Jot or somebody that affects the tiles, fine. You focus on Wilbur, and you want that shared damage the entire Titan, the entire fight, and you're still going to hit the weak point to freeze the Titan when you can. But if you can't, it's not that detrimental because of the shared damage. And on top of that, that allows you to make moves to just create diamonds, which will cause cascades, which will create damage. And so not having to completely focus on hitting that point, the weak point, in order to survive, to me it's huge. And the only thing that I think it does do is it makes you a little dependent on mana potions. But if you wanted to, you could use minor mana potions, and you can just fire up Wilbur. And the way that I do it is, it's very simple. I count to 4. I know that I can make 4 moves with Wilbur before shared damage goes away. And I know that if he's not charged by then, I can use more mana potions. I also combine it with arrows and bear banners just to give you even more survivability. But the idea is just survive, get through the 2 minutes. I can't see how much damage you can do if everyone's dead within the first 30 seconds or 1 minute.
Sure, I'm going to roll your video here so people can see an example of what you're doing.
Right. This turned out to be a really good hit. And I have to say, I recorded this. I recorded this, and as soon as we talked about it, it was the next Titan hit I did. So it's not like I planned to get 70,000 damage or however much it worked. But in general, I find that even on 14-star Titans, I do between 30 to 70 on the average. And that's, like I said, using Wilbur on every Titan. I am fortunate enough to have Miki. I call him Miki. I know people pronounce it differently. And I also have the elemental down of every type. So I am fortunate enough to have those heroes, and that makes a huge difference, obviously. But I find most players have Wilbur. Don't overlook him as your defensive down. And if you want to go cheap, not everybody farms all night long in order to get the mats, and it's a good way to go.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's most compelling about your method there is that you're getting away with lower item usage and using lower cost items. Because I do know, especially if you're in a higher alliance that's putting away 13, 14-star Titans every day, it can get resource heavy to try to keep up with that on the daily. Right. And you're definitely right. Not everybody's as insane as I am as far as the level of farming and making sure we have weapons for everything.
Right.
All right. So
I know too, when you interviewed Second Star, they talked about limiting the number of Titan hits on a Titan because I do think that is a problem at the highest level. And I'm not sure where this Hero of the Month falls in, but I feel like it's going to get worse because people are just going to be doing more damage per hit. But we do try and ask everyone to stop around 200,000 damage to give everyone a chance to hit the Titan.
Yeah, that's what we do too. And the near, I'm actually glad they kind of didn't release how she was in beta. The problem, from what I understand, in beta, she was stacking with Jot. So when you have Jot's massive boost to tiles and then the massive critical damage, I heard rumors of people getting 800 plus K single hits, which is just nonsensical unless we have like 20-star Titans. So right. I'm glad they didn't break Titans. I'm glad that she does not stack with Jot. And if anything, the videos that I'm seeing, she's proving more valuable as a counter to Bara. I don't know if you've seen those videos, but
no, not yet.
She gets her passive skill is I forget exactly how it is, but when she gets an ailment, she gets 10% health back. Wow. So every hit from a Bara, there's a video circulating with a lone Alexandrine against 4 enemies, Bara and 3 other stout heroes, and she completely self-heals every single turn. So it's a long video, but it's
wow. She's just got some war use. I didn't really consider that. What about for Mythic Titan? Do you think a lot of people will try and have 3 or 4 of her?
Maybe if they don't have Jot. I guess that's probably a debate for another day. Is it easier to get a seasonal 4-star hero than it is to get the hero of the month? I personally feel, and maybe it's because I summons a lot, that the hero of the months are given out like candy. Like I think anybody who puts at least not a significant, but some amount of effort into summoning in a month will get a hero of the month. If you're a heavy summoner like I am, you end up with lots and lots of duplicates of the hero of the month. And frankly, I think that's part of what added to the whole fiasco with Vila and Teloria. Is they just were too readily accessible. 1.3% doesn't sound like a good percentage chance, but when it's 1.3% of every summons for an entire month in every category, that suddenly pops up a lot compared to like an Alfreaky who's 0.1%, for 3 days a month or something. So
right, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm glad that they have not released hero of the months that have been so God, I don't want to say overpowered because the comment section will go crazy, but so obviously desirable.
Right.
Like
they've been a while.
Yeah, they've been a little more tempered with the powers of the hero of the month, and I think that's probably better for the game, but that's just my opinion. So let's get in and talk about these war teams. Okay. So you are a 3-2 player. I'm looking at war team number 1 here, which is Dark, has some of my favorites on here: Guardian, Panther, and Moreau, with Hell, who you mentioned, and then Gazelle and Zuri.
Right. There's a lot of synergy there between Gazelle and Zuri. This team is a little bit dependent on getting yellow tiles, but the truth is if all I get are purple tiles, the team does just fine. I think a lot of that has to do with Hell. I think she's one of the most exceptional war heroes in the game. I benched her for a while until I went Shield Path and helped her survive a lot more. But she's very dominant, and Proteus can be very dominant too if you don't have her.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, I actually just started leveling her. I've had her for a while, but I am very fortunate with my dark pulls. I have a lot of really excellent dark heroes, and I have found that element to be the hardest to decide who to go next.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Hell is still not maxed on my team. Grimble is still not maxed.
Oh, wow. I mean, you're missing out. Grimble's great.
I know Grimble is great. I know Hell is great. But Moreau, Hannah, and I have double Lepiotas now, so it's like the season 4 darks have been really great, and then double Alfreakys. I mean, there's just been a lot of really great dark heroes.
Right.
All right, War Team 2, and my favorite hero, who I just mentioned, Lepiota with Costume Regard, or is that Regular Regard? Excuse me, Regular Regard, and Phileas Fogg, Evelyn, and Fluffy.
Right. Yeah, that's the only team I use green heroes. We debate this over and over too, but I don't find them to be as effective for some reason. I know it's not specifically going up against Gravemaker, but when you're facing a lot of Frigg, you want to remove green tiles from the board so that she doesn't completely destroy you. So obviously I've moved. You'll see as we see all the war teams, I've moved towards yellow heroes. And I think as many of them as you can get on your team, even if they're relatively speaking not quite as strong as other colors, at the top we're facing a lot of Bera tanks and we're facing a lot of Alfreaky tanks. And you'll see I use 9 yellow heroes, and if I could squeeze a couple more in, I will. But the way to get more yellow heroes on the war teams was to remove one of the colors or some of one of the colors, and it turned out to be green in my case.
Yeah, for me, my roster is weakest on holies, and I know that they're relevant right now, but I just do not have the holy heroes I want, and not in the fashion that I'd like to have them. And I would kindly disagree on green not being the strong color, but I have some really wicked green teams, and I think there are some things that there is synergy on my nature team that can't be duplicated in any other element, and I've tried to do it, and it's just not possible. And that's why I built a second green team just like that. But Toxicandra with the fast healing and the mana boosting on top of Evelyn, who is healing, Elemental Link, and then Costume Elk, who does some healing. Like, that's a very survivable team. And
maybe it's because I don't have Toxicandra.
Yeah, Toxicandra is a game changer. And then and then I throw Frigg in there. So between I really just need those 4. If I get 7 tiles, it's usually game over. So, but we all have, I think, that bias towards, I think, a certain element in certain types of heroes. And, and I know it's confirmation bias, but I swear my account gets lots of green tiles. I'm just looking for them.
Right.
All right. War Team 3. Holy. Lindenbrock, Odin, Uraeus, and then Black Knight and Elizabeth. So Black Knight's not a surprise. You were talking about the power of the taunt.
This team is very strong. I have a lot of success with this team. There's definitely a lot of synergy between Uraeus and due to the sand damage and the fiends that are put out. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name because I don't have what you have in front of me. Elizabeth, sorry.
Elizabeth, yep.
So there's a lot of synergy there. When I design these two teams, one of the things that I try and think a lot about is if I only get one of the 2 colors predominantly throughout the entire fight, how is that fight going to work out? And so that's something I think a lot about, because that's where I think some 3-2 teams can fail, is not recognizing that you may only get some of one of the colors. So for this team's a great example. If I get mostly red tiles, I'm golden, because Black Knight's going to protect me, attack boost, taunt. Elizabeth's fiends are going to just start tearing them down. I don't need to get yellow. But if I do get mostly yellow tiles, Lindenbrock's overheal is so powerful in this game. I can survive anything, and eventually I'll get back to red tiles. But that's kind of the idea between these 3-2s. You have to sort of imagine only getting one predominantly, and then obviously if you get a diamond at the beginning or you get both of them, you're gonna completely destroy someone. But
sure. Now, how are you handling, like, looking at this particular team? How are you handling debuffing or cleansing?
Well, that team doesn't need it. So I try and have that dispelling, and debuffing. I try and have that on every team. This team just doesn't seem to really need it. It just doesn't. It just survives so much longer that it hasn't. I might adjust it at some point. These teams constantly get adjusted, but especially against Barrett tanks, this team is very successful. And so I just haven't had that problem.
All right. And now we're looking at your mostly ice team here with Frida, Ariel, and Cobalt, and then another Regard and Onyx. So you're not using costume Regard? You're always sticking with regular Regard?
I have been. I prefer the large heal. I was using the costume for a while. Sometimes during these fights, you don't have the time for the heal over time to really take effect. I'd rather have the 2 large heals. I found that to be a little bit more effective. And by the way, if you remember the year that we played together, we had a lot of debates about this particular hero. Regard. By far my favorite 4-star hero in the game. I guarantee you when I limit break him, he's my choice for limit breaking. I'm gonna limit break both of them. And I don't even care if I limit break a 5-star purple hero at this point. I find him to be, just due to the costume, just due to the simple way of getting him to go off at 9 tiles. I find him to be extremely effective. And at one point I had 6 of them. And I remember you and I used to debate it. And tell me if I'm quoting this wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you said you didn't use any on your war teams. And it's funny is I didn't take offense to that. Like it was some sort of slight to me.
Right.
It was just your style of play has always been different than my style of play. And neither is right or wrong. They're just different.
I'm laughing because when you said, am I quoting you right? I thought you were going to bring up I have said many times, I have no regard for Regard.
Well, look, we can view him differently. I feel he's the big heal, the cleanse, speed at which you can get him to be used, especially if you don't have a lot of high level mana troops. He's extremely effective. At one point, I think I had purple on every team because I had him with some other purple or 2 other purples. I've sort of moved away from him gradually with getting a couple Professor Lindenbrocks, and if I had Toxic Candra, I probably would bench 1 more. But he's super effective. So for the players not spending a lot of money who are watching this, don't be shy about leveling multiple ones if you have them. Don't eat them all.
Regard is awesome. I for some reason I have avoided heroes that other people have used in quantity and success, like regard. And people are constantly surprised by the fact that I actually have never maxed a Taloria.
Oh wow.
I think I have one at 370, and I have another one or two that are just floundering on a roster somewhere. But yeah, I don't know. And now, to be fair, I have had, until recently, I only ever ran one healer on my war team, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of the great average 5-star healers, so I've used those. And now I've started maxing duplicates and triplicates of those, because I have definitely bought into the over healing, keep everybody alive train, and that's been working for me. But no, regard is interesting. I think I'm pretty confident I've never used him in a war ever.
Well, it's not too late, especially when
I can't start now.
Limit Breaking comes out. I think you'd be a bargain for a purple healer.
Sure, and I definitely use him. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. I definitely use him for 4-star events. So But war team number 5, light it up with some fire. Gravemaker, Garnet, Gefyon, Sif, and Poseidon. Poseidon's a great counter for Alfriki.
Yeah, he's another hero that I think fits into that category of being slightly emblem dependent. He's not overly effective with several emblems, but when you fully emblem him, he reaches numbers which include really good survivability. You're right, he's a great counter to Barra. And he's not exactly a sniper. I don't believe he hits unbelievably hard, but in the meta we're in right now, any yellow hero, I think, really gets pushed up the list.
Yeah, and Gravemaker, I've not personally been fascinated with Gravemaker. I think he can be great on defense, but for me, using Gravemaker on offense, he just never hit hard enough for my liking. Now you do have Gefyon there, who's one of my favorite snipers. That ability to steal the minion and then whack them upside the head, that is wonderful. And I don't know.
She's one of those direct upgrades in the game when you're talking about upgrading from a season 1 hero to another hero. And you know who I'm referring to.
Yeah, Marjana. Yeah.
Right.
And if there's anybody out there who is not a Sif convert yet, man, I came late to the game on Sif, and she is phenomenal. And what's odd to me about me taking so long with Sif is I absolutely love Mitsuko, and watching Finleys and Vilas and those resolve themselves. I always say they resolve themselves against my team. But heroes like that, it's really like taking another hero with you. Like you're
right.
You know, I like those heroes like Lord Loki or the Hatter that steals, like, you know, the game limits us to 5, but the more we can steal from the enemy or use the enemy's power against them.
Right.
You know,
the game has transitioned to much more of a manipulation versus straight damage.
Yep. All right. War Team 6.
Scotty, this is the one that changes all the time, by the way.
Yeah, so Scotty and Finley and Lord Loki, and then DeAndre and Malozzi. Right. And look at that, limit broke 4-star.
Yeah, there we go. That's one of 2, I think. Yeah, DeAndre he's a fantastic hero. Good. In my case, I had a lot of Paladin emblems that were sitting around. He will be replaced by Lyndon Brock pretty soon, my second Lyndon Brock. But I find him to be extremely effective. These mana boosters, you know, we mentioned earlier what my top 3 were. I think these mana boosters should be in that conversation too, between him and Ariel, and the other ones that do that. It's hard for me to really quantify it and calculate how it works, but I know that it's a huge asset. Agreed. And then Melosi is one of these heroes that I hear all the time. People get sick of them, bench them, not really sure what to do with them. But in my mind, and I'm pretty set on this, but you know, a lot of people disagree. If you go shield path, he survives. And I think that's where he becomes controversial, because he dies a lot. And so unless you've used him 100 times and realized that he dies all the time, and that's what makes him less effective. If you go shield path and he survives, you'll see how unbelievably effective he can be. He's a great hero.
Sure. And Malozzi's another one of those holy heroes that are a good counter to Alfreak.
Right.
And anybody who's on a higher level rush war knows how important it is to fight Alfreaks. All right. So let's ask the question that everybody really wants to know, or maybe it's
Right.
just me. Which one of these teams, which war team is going against JekylandHyde in today's war?
Oh, I think you'll have to watch the video. I think I don't know if everyone understands this too, but we're using Line app right now, and we're doing a shared
We have war chat.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, which is fantastic, because one of my biggest gripes about the game is you can't watch someone else's hit. So you think your defense is terrible, but you've never seen what tiles the other person got.
Right.
And in this case, and I'm not embarrassed to put up a fail. I don't really care. But I'll put up every attack I have so that the people who I'm hitting can see what their defenses are doing.
Yep. Yeah, you never know. And actually, we joke about the last time we fought in war, and now I'm remembering, and I don't remember who it was. I think it's a female that was on your team. I had an opening board with a diamond that like self set off and cascaded, and like it was a 1-move war hit, which I take credit. That's part of my 6-1 shots, right? But
right.
Other than building a strong team that could really do something with that one tile move, but you're right. You never see the hits. And that's another thing that I think is worth mentioning at the level of play that we're at is one-shotting is not that uncommon on your defense. Like I recently did an analysis on all my entire alliance's defense teams, and I on any given day, every Wednesday or Sunday or whatever, I'm looking at my defense and I'm like, wow, I got one shot 3 times and I stopped once. And it's like you feel bad, but then once you start comparing it to your alliance and you realize, wow, everybody else has gotten one shot a number of times and had 1 or 2 stops. Like, I think we need to pull back the mirage that there's these god defenses out there that never get one shot.
Yeah, it's just not true. I think the offenses in the game have outclassed the defenses at this point. And usually the outcome, the winners in our wars of late have been how many people get 300 points? How many people go 6 for 6? And if your alliance has 10 people that did that, you're probably going to win. And I've seen the scores really go up in the last few weeks too. And I wonder why that's really the case. But again, I think the offenses are starting to outclass the defenses.
Yep, agreed. And I think another big shift that happened in the last year is it's not typical to see healers in the defense team. So you're seeing a lot of these healer heavy offense teams that are just, if you can keep your team alive, you'll just wear them down with tiles eventually, and then an occasional special will go off that helps you. So it is definitely a different kind of fight than 2 years ago when everybody came in with heavy hitters and you were hoping that Albie or Mother North were in the corner to bring back your hitters when they died and so they could come back to life and hit again.
Right.
But all right, well, this has been excellent. Anything you want to give, any shout outs or anything before we wrap up?
Yeah, I wrote a real quick list. I know I'm going to miss a couple people. I definitely want to give a shout out again to Quillix, who's an amazing leader in White Lotus. Again, DJ, Donger, Bender, Popples, Quinn, Angel, Headhunter, Zerk, Foley, Nana, Queen Donut. I didn't list the entire alliance, but these are a lot of the players I've played with for a long time. Sure. It was an honor playing with you for the year that we played together. Yeah. I know we had our disagreements, but these were all in fun. Oh, yeah. And we debated these heroes to death for that year, and it's going to be really great to play against you today. Best of luck to you, honestly, and we'll see how that goes.
All right, so now I am in the past your neighbor from Pennsylvania, so I have to ask across the border, do you refer to it as an Italian sandwich or a hoagie?
Hoagie.
All
Absolutely,
right.
Yeah.
New Jersey guy, hoagie. Have one for me, man. I'm desperate for an Italian sandwich down here.
I'm trying to cut back on that sort of thing. Sitting at home the last year and a half.
I hear that too.
Hasn't been all that good for me. Yeah.
I hear that. Well, it's been great talking to you. Thanks for the interview.
Yeah, same here. Thank you.
All right, everybody, we got some bonus material for you on this interview. Now, typically I try to end the interview with some actual empires and puzzles fighting between me and the interviewee. Brian has committed to attacking me in war today. I'll do likewise, and we'll include those hits at the end of this video. But before we get to that, that'll be your second bonus video. The first bonus video, we got talking post-interview about his shirt. What's the history of your shirt?
This is Scott Weiland live at one of his concerts.
And what is that? Why is that relevant to you?
I am in a Stone Temple Pilots tribute band where I am the singer.
All right. So we're going to totally put you on the spot right now. Can you just give us a few?
Sure. And I feel time's a ways to go. So where you going till tomorrow? How's that?
Perfect.
But
Excellent.
most recognizable song. Most people will know that song.
Excellent. Appreciate you sharing.
And thanks. And you find us on Facebook at Loungefly STP Tribute. If you search for that, you'll see a picture of me with some makeup on and some sunglasses. It's kind of embarrassing, but you'll recognize me from that. Thank you.
I'll put the link up right here so they'll be able to find that. And now I can get my first ding on YouTube for copyrighted material. All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, interview weekend with Bung from the White Lotus. He attacked me, so it is my turn to attack him. Haven't pulled out Mitsuko against Finley in a while. Wish me luck. Man, no movement on the side of the board other than making that on the left side. The only option is that fire match, and I'd rather not make that right away. Might improve the holy position. Yeah, I'm just not finding any of these moves attractive. Alright, well this works. If we're going to set Finley off, let's do it early. Oh, look at that. Now we're going to hit one. Well, I certainly would have preferred to take Finley out with Mitsuko, because now I'm stuck with an average healer that's not playing with everybody else. Get some tiles to Zuri. Alright. Gefion's gonna kill somebody. Whew. Thankfully not. Alright, let's get these holies off the board before he fires. That might be it for Garnet. Friggin' Odins still are very dangerous. You got a fire at the bottom here. Cats, 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 cats. Psst, psst, psst. Alright, I really want to get these up to speed before Gefion goes off again. Whew. Might have got you, Bung. A lot of green on the table. There we go. Not an easy fight for sure.